Hi, this is James Gordon October. I'll be here for book review. Today's book I'm reviewing today, Firestarter by Stephen King. This was first published in 1980 by Stayment. This edition is from August of 81 from Stayment. This was a reread. I tried this book years ago. I didn't get far in it, so I gave this book another try, and I gotta say, I was really disappointed with this book. It gets off to a good start. The backtracking was one thing I kind of didn't like with this book, which I'll explain later on in my review. But despite that, I thought, okay, I'll just keep on reading, see how it gets. And when I reached the second and third act of this book, is when it really just all goes downhill, and I was like, this is boring. And towards the end of this book, I'm just really bored with it. Like, there's so much drama, characters just arguing with each other, a lot of talking, and not a lot happens in this towards the end of this book. And I was really bored. And when it finally starts going somewhere, King just wraps the whole thing up and is like, okay, I'm done. I thought this sucks. I felt this book had so much potential to be a lot better than it was, and King just dropped the ball on this one. This is one of his weakest books I have read. And there's a bunch of other things I'll explain later after my review about this book and why I didn't like it. Alright, onto the book review, and spoiler alert, as I will be giving away crucial details within the story. Plot. Back in 1969, Andrew McGee took part in an experiment while on campus founded by Dr. Wallace of the Psychic Department. Dr. Joseph Wallace has picked 12 men and women who have psychic powers and gives them a drug called Lot 6. The Psychic Department wants to study the test subjects and see if this increases their powers or gain new ones. Funding this project is the agency group The Shop. The test subjects will be also paid $200 if they take part in it. While there, Andrew meets Vicky as the two strike up a friendly conversation. Vicky has telekinetic powers while Andrew has telepathic powers, which he calls it the push. However, Andrew gets headaches when he uses his abilities too much. During the experiment, both Andrew and Vicky become close to each other. At first, Andrew is fine in taking part in this experiment, but begins to read the thoughts of people working there, learning their true motives and dark secrets. And one of the test subjects pokes his own eyes out and writes something on the chalkboard in his own blood, which Dr. Wallace has the incident covered up. Using his powers, Andrew discovers it's a warning, and he and Vicky flee campus. In the present, Andrew and his 7-year-old daughter, Charlie, are on the run from the shop as they have tracked them down in New York. Andrew's wife and daughter were kidnapped by the shop. Andrew rescued Charlie and finds Vicky dead and has been on the run for a year. Charlie has the strongest power that Andrew knows, as she can use it without getting headaches. She also has the same powers as her mother and father, and she also has pyrokinetic, the ability to set things on fire. The shop agents came nearly close to capturing them while trying to get off the crowded streets. Using his ability, the push, Andrew is able to make a cab driver flee the scene before two agents can capture them, and pays the driver $500 to take them to Abbey. They reach the airport to rest for a while. Andrew has Charlie shove payphones to get money. However, Charlie accidentally sets a man's shoes on fire. The shop agents arrive at the airport and begin searching for Andrew and Charlie. While questioning a security guard, he tells them about a bizarre thing happened to a man and his shoes suddenly burst into flames. The agents know the two people they are after are here. Charlie senses the agents as she and Andrew flee the airport and cut across a field, but slips on the wet grass as Andrew hurts himself but is alright. While walking close by to the highway, Andrew is able to hitch a ride in a van and reach a motel, allowing the two to get some much-needed rest. Meanwhile, head of the shop, Captain James Hollister, or Cap as he's mostly called, has grown frustrated by the failure of trying to capture the two fugitives, and not even the aid of the police is helping. The agents he sent out are nowhere near finding them. Cap plans to hire a Cherokee and Vietnam vet, John Rainbird, to track down Andrew and his daughter Charlie. Raybird is a professional assassin for the shop. However, Dr. Wallace is against this idea, stating it is too dangerous, as if anything happens to the father, Charlie might unleash her full power as nothing could stop her. He wants Cap to terminate both Andrew and Charlie, but Cap is against this and dismisses Dr. Wallace's warnings. The next day, Andrew and Charlie hitch a ride to a farm. When they reach the farm, they meet Ivory Matters along with his wife Norma. Charlie is able to lie to Matters the reason why they are there, as they are dealing with family problems, which Andrew goes along with. Matters believes her and allows the two of them to stay. But after lunch, Matters knows something is off with Andrew as he reveals why they are hitchhiking, and the experiment along with the agents of the shop who killed his wife are after them. Matters tells Andrew that there are roadblocks as the police are looking for them too. When Charlie comes in after feeding Matters chicken, she knows her father told him the truth and senses the agents are coming and they want to kill him. Matters suddenly notices cars speeding towards their house. Andrew knows they won't have a time to run, and these agents are heavily armed. With no choice, Andrew wants Charlie to use her powers against them. When the agents show up with their guns drawn, Andrew warns them what her daughter can do, but refuse to listen as they fire off their guns, nearly hitting him and wounding Manners. Charlie sets the agents on fire and causes their cars to explode, but she is unable to control herself and accidentally sets the Manners house on fire. Andrew has knocked her out to make Charlie stop. The elderly couple is shocked by what they saw. Despite being injured, Manners helps Andrew by giving him a jeep along with a route that will bypass the roadblocks. Andrew plans to reach a cabin in Trashmore, Vermont that belonged to his grandfather. As they leave, fire trucks and police cars are racing towards the house. When Cat receives the bad news that the mission failed as 4 out of the 6 agents were killed and the 2 fugitives have escaped, he plans to send Rainbird after Andrew and Charlie while covering up the incident. Andrew and Charlie reach his grandfather's cabin and plan to stay there as long as they can. During the winter, Andrew plans to reveal the dirty secrets of the American government is hiding from the public. He writes 6 letters and goes to mail them off to different news and magazines to expose the shop in hopes this will make them back off and allow Andrew and Charlie to live in peace. However, as Andrew goes to mail the letters, an agent of the shop spots him and reports to Cap. Cap sends Rainbird to capture the 2 fugitives but wants to retire after this job and threatens Cap if he refuses to his agreements. Within hours, Rainbird along with the shop agents are sent in, but this time uses dart rounds to knock out both Charlie and Andrew as they are leaving the cabin, and they are able to capture them. The shop plans to break down Andrew and use Charlie's powers as a weapon. However, Rainbird has other ideas, and Cap is about to learn the hard way you shouldn't play with fire, especially with Charlie. Firestarter was a very disappointing novel. The first act gets off to a good start, however by the second and third act is when it all goes downhill. Stephen King wastes so much time with drama, characters doing hardly anything, and a lot of filler that made the last part of this novel a real chore to get through. Also wish King came up with a better title than Firestarter. There was hardly any characters I liked in this story. Andrew/Andy felt so boring as I wish King could have given him better powers and made him more likable. Charlie, I felt, was being held back from unleashing her full potential. Even at the end, when Charlie is attacking the shop agents with her powers, King just rushes this part so quickly to wrap everything up, as I was expecting more carnage and mayhem, but I got none of that. I was also annoyed with Cap keeping both Andrew and Charlie as prisoners for 6 months, and what does he do with them? Nothing. Just giving Andrew drugs to weaken him and keeping Charlie in a jail-like room for 6 months till they are ready to test her powers. And I hated the whole blackout scene. As it was so boring and what could have been a better escape scene. Instead, what I got was John Bird spending most of the time gaining Charlie's trust so he can kill her was so stupid. And Andrew does nothing but watch TV hours on end till he remembers his powers and gains them back. Cap and John Rainbird were the most boring villains I ever read in a story. While Rainbird wants to know what it'd be like to kill a child, but chooses Charlie as some sort of challenge to kill a child with powers, was lame. As for Cap, he wastes time, does hardly anything with Charlie, and waits 6 months to do something with her. I felt this whole novel could have been a lot better if King made Charlie a teenage girl instead of a 7-year-old girl who whines and cries a lot throughout the novel, made Andrew a better character with more interesting powers, and adding more scenes of action, characters, and things being blown up or set on fire, crafting a better layered plot and story. And lastly, I didn't like having to read both Charlie and Andrew questioning their actions and thinking how God will punish them was so dumb, and hated reading these scenes. Overall, I don't recommend Firestarter. It's a very slow, dull, and boring novel. I would easily put this as one of King's weakest novels. I'm sure you can find better novels with characters that have powers than this one. And that is our review, and as I said earlier, I was very disappointed with this book. I was just expecting so much more for Firestarter and was really very disappointed with this book at all. Like, the beginning part gets off to a really good start. I'm not really a huge fan of like flashback scenes, especially that happen very early in the book. Like if it's an intro, fine, but if there's going to be constant like chapters where the character has a flashback and the story has to backtrack, I'm not really a huge fan of that. I'd rather have the story all being told while moving forward. It'll explain everything instead of having like backtrack with flashback scenes. If it's very few flashback scenes, okay, but if it's just like the first part of the book, it does a lot of flashbacks. I was like, I'm not a fan of it. It's like a lot of backtracking till we finally get the story just sticking forward. That's after like the first act of the novel, but after the first part of the book is when the second and third act is where it just gets worse. The second part is really boring. The characters don't really do much. There's a lot of talking drama. And the third part was the absolute worst. It was very boring. I couldn't believe when I was at the end towards the end of this book how bored I was. Like King just wastes time having the characters argue drama a lot and hardly do anything, and isn't towards the very end of the book when he finally makes something happen, but he is just in a rush to wrap up the story and just get it done quickly. As I could tell, King was rushing, especially towards the end of the book where Charlie is like unleashes her full powers during the shop and the two villains, and when she's in the barn, he just basically says the barn burst into flames, the agents burst into flames, the cars exploded, the whole area is like engulfed in flames, and he's done. And I thought, like, what could have been a really good book. Like King had a great idea, but he just failed to go anywhere with it or make it more interesting. Um, I really didn't like the characters. I thought Andrew was kind of boring and not really likable. His pushability, it was kind of like it was okay, but it made me think of like the Forest. That's what it reminded me a lot of. Like the part where in the Star Wars movie, what is it? A New Hope. Yeah, the episode 4, A New Hope. The part where an old Obi-Wan Kenobi is does you only see his identification to the stormtroopers. That's what his powers remind me of. He has to he has to say it out loud and then like wave his hand. I thought, can he just like think of it in his mind when he does this? Like, does he have to say every time like something he says out loud? It's just, like I didn't like that, and I felt his powers could have been a lot like he could have like more interesting powers and stuff. But Charlie was the one character I felt that could have been so much better if King made her a teenage girl instead of a 7-year-old. She just whines and cries a lot, and just it was not fun reading those parts. And I felt she like so much potential. Like there was parts where in the book where she's against the idea of using her power on people because she doesn't want to hurt anyone, but at the same time she kind of gets off on it. Like she likes using her powers and seeing stuff burn, so she gets off on it. So it's like this struggle, and I felt it would have been so much better if this was a teenage girl instead. It would have been more interesting. And there were so many scenes I was just bored with it where King just doesn't do anything with the story. Like the second part, the Charlie and Andrew are just in a cabin and they don't it doesn't explain what they do to get like money and stuff. Like he goes hunting, he goes fishing, he's like gets like food and stuff, but what does he do to get money and stuff? It doesn't explain that. And then when they're captured, this is the part I hated the most. When they're captured, Cap just has them in prison for like 6 months and does nothing with them until he decides, okay, now it's time to test Charlie's powers and see if we can use as a weapon, which I thought was so boring. Like, just why 6 months? You think that 6 months he would be actually trying to do something, but no, he doesn't do anything during that 6 months. And the one part I really hated was this whole like blackout scene where the facility they're in, the power goes out during the storm, and I thought, okay, is Charlie going to use her powers to break out of her jail cell and attack these like shop agents and rescue her father and try to escape? Nope, King doesn't do that. Instead, John Winbird just John Rainbird, disguised as a janitor, tries to gain Charlie's trust so that way he can kill her. Tries to kill her later on in the story, like his whole his whole plot was to basically kill Charlie to see what it'd be like to kill a child, but wants to kill this one child with powers as a challenge. I thought this is the stupidest thing ever, and the whole his whole plan, and then telling Cap to go along with it was just so dumb. And then Andrew just like watching TV hours on end until he finally remembers how to use his powers and gains them back. It was so boring, and the two characters just questioning what God's gonna do to them when they die and being fear of being punished. Like, I don't want to read this. Just cut this shit out. I don't need to read this bullshit in the story. Like, just cut that out. Oh, it was, but the whole ending was such a chore to get through. Like, the last few pages were so slow, and all this filler. It's like, come on, King, get the story going already. Like, I'm already on the 300 page mark, and I'm getting bored. And oh, it sucks. I felt Firestarter could have been so much better if King, he had a great idea. Okay, a psychic girl with powers can set things on fire. Okay, you got this agency that wants to use a weapon. Okay, that's good too, and they're not afraid to kill like their civilians to get away. Okay, that could have been so much great, but he fails to take that interesting idea and expand upon that. And what's really a shame too is that I was thinking checking the film out, but after reading the plot of the film, it's just basically the same thing as the book. It does change a few things, but it pretty much follows the book exactly. And my friend Leon for Paperback Maniac posted a newspaper posting about John Carpenter's frustration with the failure of The Thing when it was released in theaters back in the 80s. And I found out that if The Thing was a success, John Carpenter's next film would have been Firestarter, and he was and because The Thing failed, the studio decided to not hire him to direct the film. And instead got Mark L. Lester, who did Commando, and they rejected Carpenter's script and got some other guy to rewrite it, and pretty much stuck more true to King's book. I thought, what could have been a better film if Carpenter's Thing was a success and he went to do Firestar? He probably would have done a much better job and took an interesting idea and expanded on that where King failed at it. Oh, and the ending I did not like at all in the book, where Charlie ends up living with um, Ivory Matters and Nova at the end, Norma at the end. And I was like, how does she find them? She's like miles away from them. How the hell did she find them and stuff? And it's just, I felt King, like I said, King was just trying to get the ending all wrapped up as quickly as possible, so he threw those two characters in because those are the only two characters that Charlie knows that were nice compared to everyone else. And I just felt it could have been so much better, and it was a really disappointing book. It was Firestar was a reread. Um, First time I tried it, I didn't get far in it, so when I gave it a second try, it like the start of it is good. Like, it's a good start, but the whole second and third act just it drops the ball, and just it was a huge letdown. I was really disappointed in this book, and I was like, hell, even David Cronenberg's Scanners is better than this. So I'm gonna have to keep my eyes out for a better book with a person with psychic powers. I do have two others. The other one, the one I own is Carrie King's first novel, and another book I got is Brainstorm, which is, I think it's a novel. It's a novel tie-in to the film of the same name, or maybe the novel came out first. I can't remember, but that's another one. Oh yeah, and I also got the other one, Firestorm by that um, oh oh shit, what's his name? Something Swan. The guy that was like that had real psychic powers. He wrote a book about a rock star that has psychic powers. That one I have to check out too, see if that's any good. But yeah, so Firestar was a huge letdown. So yep, that's that. All right, that's our review today. Hope you enjoyed it. And for my next book, I begin reading Summer Sparks by Pixel Chaser. My friend and furry friend told me about this book. He read it and said, "James, you gotta read this book. It is amazing, and it has like the hottest sex scenes you ever read." I'm like, okay, I'm on it. So let's do my next book. And I got a series picked out. I got a short book series I'm planning on doing. So after I'm done that book, I will begin reading the book I got picked out for my series, and then after I'm done reading the first book, I will post the trailer, and then post the first book review, and then I'll be but I'll already be like reading through the second book in the series, so I can get this series wrapped up in a good time frame because summer is coming up, and I plan on doing my Summer Slaughter 2. So I'll be reading some action books during the summer, and I got some other books I'll be reading as well. So I'm going to try to get back into my 100-page reading methods. That way I can crank out more book reviews and stuff. And I'm going to lay off buying books. I'll see how things are for June if I end up going to the book riot. I do got to try to clear out some books on my shelves, so I'm going to try to clear as many books as I can. And if things are good, then I'll go to the book riot. It just all depends how things work out for me for this year. Alright, that is it for the book review today. Hope you enjoyed it, and please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, October Library, and the Facebook group of the same name of Place in Poetry and Review Fiction. Until then, I'll catch you later.